There's a specific Friday that Marcus hasn't been able to shake. March, somewhere around the middle of the month, he opened his credit card statement and just stared. It wasn't a catastrophic number. It was a collection of small ones. $42 here, $180 there. A dinner that didn't need to happen. A pair of sneakers he bought the week his manager called him out in a team meeting. A streaming subscription he'd completely forgotten he had. The income wasn't the problem. Marcus made good money. Government contractor, long-term position, benefits package, the kind of stability that's supposed to feel like a win. The money came in. He just couldn't track where it was going. And the worst part wasn't even the money. It was the realization that none of those purchases had left anything behind. Each one had made sense in the moment. Each one had felt necessary, earned, justified. And together, they had created a whole he didn't have a name for. What Marcus was experiencing isn't a financial literacy problem. He knew what compound interest meant. He'd read the books, watched the videos, built the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet was perfect. It was him who wasn't following the spreadsheet. And here's the point that almost no one in the personal finance space will ever tell you. The issue wasn't lack of information. It was what work was doing to him. Have you ever stopped to consider what happens to a man's body when he spends 8 hours a day being required to contain what he feels? You walk into a meeting where your manager contradicts you in front of the team and you smile. You spend 3 hours on a process that makes no logical sense, and you pretend everything's fine. You watch a colleague take credit for work you built, and you respond with no worries. All of that suppression has a real energetic cost. Psychology calls it ego depletion, the process by which the capacity for self-regulation deteriorates with use. When you spend an entire day controlling yourself, resisting, adapting, the reservoir of willpower you use for conscious decision-making runs out. And then you leave work, and the body asks for relief. This isn't weakness, it's physiology. The nervous system that spent the day in social survival mode needs to decompress. And the path of least resistance in the modern world is consumption. Coffee on the way home, dinner out because you deserve it after that day. A purchase on your phone at 11 at night because you were scrolling trying to fall asleep. Marcus wasn't being irresponsible. He was being human in a way that no one taught him to recognize. There's a specific pattern for this. I call it compensatory spending. It's when the purchase doesn't serve to acquire something, it serves to compensate for something. The object bought has no intrinsic value. It has value as temporary relief from accumulated pressure. And the problem with temporary relief is that it doesn't resolve what created the pressure. So the pressure returns, and the cycle repeats. Daniel Kahneman, the psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences, spent decades studying how human beings make decisions. What he found is that most of our choices, including financial ones, don't come from rational analysis. They come from the brain's fast system, what he called System 1, intuitive, emotional, responsive to the internal state of the moment. When you're depleted, anxious, or humiliated, System 1 is driving. And System 1 doesn't do financial planning. It seeks immediate relief. Marcus's spreadsheet was System 2, slow, analytical, rational. The problem is that you can't keep System 2 active when System 1 is in emotional emergency mode. It's like trying to solve an equation while someone screams in your ear. The calculation doesn't work. You're not stupid. You're impaired by something that was never named for you. Let me show you how this pattern actually operates. Marcus leaves the office after a particularly heavy afternoon. A process he'd spent 3 weeks building came back from compliance with 22 observations. His manager asked him to redo it. It wasn't even wrong. It was a different interpretation of a regulatory detail. But the Marcus who walks out the door at 6:47 isn't the same one who walked in at 8:15. This Marcus is running on empty. The self-regulation muscle that spent the day contracting is fatigued. In the elevator, he sees a push notification. Sneakers from a brand he follows, 30% off, limited time. The analytical Marcus, the spreadsheet Marcus, would know he already has 3 functional pairs. But the Marcus in the elevator at 6:52 is not in analytical mode, he's in recovery mode. And buying the sneakers gives him something that the entire day refused to give him, the sensation of control, of choice, of there being at least one space in the world where what he decides is what happens. Do you see what's actually at stake here? It's not the sneakers, it was never the sneakers. It's the fundamental need for agency, the experience that your choices matter and produce effects. When work removes that sensation from you for hours at a time, consumption becomes the place where it gets recovered. You buy because it's the only place where you're in charge. And here's where it gets more subtle. Compensatory spending rarely shows up as excess. It shows up as entitlement. You don't think, I'm going to spend because I'm anxious. You think, I worked hard, I deserve this. The language of deserving is the emotional cover for the pattern, and it's extremely difficult to question because it contains a real logic. You did work hard. You do deserve something. The problem is that what you deserve, rest, recognition, autonomy, isn't available in that store. But the store is there, and the rest isn't. 2 months after the Friday of the statement, Marcus was sitting in a park near his building on a lunch break when something odd crossed his mind. He was watching someone's dog chase a squirrel and thought, at least that dog knows what it's chasing. And it wasn't humor, it was a recognition that he'd made a trade somewhere without noticing. He'd traded uncertainty for stability. He'd traded exposure for predictability. And inside that trade, he'd given away the feeling that his own future was something he had meaningful power to shape. The salary was supposed to be the reward, but it had also become the ceiling, not of how much he earned, but of how much he believed was possible to earn, build, or deserve beyond that fixed number that landed in his account on the first of every month. And when the ceiling is salary defined, compensatory spending becomes even more intense, because the only relief the system permits is spending what already came in, never building toward what could come in. Before going further, I need to show you something I built after understanding exactly what we're talking about here. It's called the Free Mind Kit. It's 3 tools that work together. The ebook is 35 pages of real psychological financial diagnosis, not advice on saving money, a map of the invisible patterns that hold back men with stable salaries. The Cost of Stability Calculator is an interactive tool. You put in your actual numbers and it shows you the real cost of not acting, in wealth, in time, in freedom deferred. And the Free Mind series is 3 audio tracks between 7 and 12 minutes each, designed to listen to when you wake up or before you sleep, working on identity, self-worth, and action where knowledge alone can't reach. The 3 work together. The ebook creates intellectual awareness. The calculator creates emotional awareness. The audios work on identity, not a course, no subscription, lifetime access, everything for $37. The link is in the description. When you're ready. Back to this. Most people who hear this will try to fix it through brute force. They'll put a limit on the credit card. They'll delete the banking app to avoid seeing the balance. They'll set a savings goal. And those strategies might work for a few weeks, but they don't touch the mechanism. They're like covering a tap that's still running. The pressure comes back, and when it does, it comes back harder because it's been building. What actually changes when someone understands the pattern isn't a containment technique. It's a recontextualization of what money means inside their identity structure. Before, Marcus saw money as reward. The salary was proof that he'd fulfilled the contract. Spending was the legitimate use of that reward. Inside that logic, spending was exercising a right, and any restraint on spending was a deprivation, a penalty imposed on something that was already his by right. When Marcus understood the compensatory spending pattern, he didn't stop buying things immediately, but he started noticing the difference between two categories of spending that had previously felt identical. Value spending, things he chose with a clear head, aligned with what he genuinely wanted to build, and relief spending, things he chose under the pressure of the day, designed to soften what the day had done to him. The distinction isn't moral. It's not this is right and this is wrong. It's functional. Value spending produces something. Relief spending relieves but doesn't produce. And it relieves less each time because the pressure it relieves keeps existing. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer had a brutal framing of this. He described human existence as an oscillation between the pain of wanting and the boredom of having. When you intensely want something you don't have, there's pain. When you get it, there's immediate relief, followed by boredom, which soon generates a new wanting. Schopenhauer saw this as an inescapable trap. But what he didn't live to see is that modernity built an entire economic system on top of that oscillation. Retail, easy credit, emotional marketing. All of it was designed to capture the exact moment between the pain of wanting and the search for relief, and to make that cycle spin as fast as possible. The ideal consumer of this system is the man who is permanently exhausted and permanently dissatisfied. Work guarantees the exhaustion, marketing guarantees the dissatisfaction, and credit guarantees he can keep consuming even without enough money to do so. When you understand that structure, you don't get angry, you get clear. And clarity changes how you relate to the impulse to spend. It's not that you'll stop feeling the impulse. The impulse exists because you're human, and the system was designed to activate it. But between the impulse and the action, there is a space, and it's in that space that the real choice happens. Third level of the pattern, and this is the hardest one to accept. Compensatory spending doesn't exist in isolation. It's sustained by an identity, the identity of someone who uses stability as a permanent anchor rather than a launching pad. The man who defines himself by the position he holds, the career track that's going smoothly, the bills that are covered, and who outsources to consumption the construction of any sensation of movement. When you define yourself by what you have, employment, salary, benefits, what you build threatens that definition. Because building implies risk, and risk implies the possibility of losing what you're defined by. So the mind, without you noticing, sabotages any movement toward construction, spends what was going toward investing, postpones the decision that could change something, finds every reason why now isn't the right time. This isn't laziness, it's the identity protecting itself. Marcus told me something months later that stayed with me. He said, I realized I wasn't saving money because I didn't actually believe I deserved a different life than the one I already had. And that's not low self-esteem in the clinical sense. It's the logic of a coherent identity system. If you define yourself by having stable employment and a specific standard of living, anything that moves you away from that equilibrium point is a threat, not an opportunity. That changes when a man stops asking, how do I spend less? And starts asking, what am I building toward? That's not a financial planning question. It's an identity question. But there's something most people do at that point, and it's where everything falls apart. They try to answer, what am I building toward? Without first facing, what am I using as a reason not to build? And the favorite excuse of the stable man is always the same, in 3 versions. The first, my retirement is already secured. True, but what secures the retirement doesn't secure the autonomy now. How long are you going to wait for the future before you start inhabiting the present? The second, I'm almost at my 10-year mark. The 10 years will come, and after them there'll be another anchor, and after that one, another. Anchors aren't goals, they're anchors. The name tells you everything. The third, my situation is different. It is. It always is. Everyone has a different situation, and everyone is paying the same price for using their situation as a reason not to act. The real cost of compensatory spending isn't the sum of the charges on your statement. That cost is calculable. You can add up 18 months of statements and know the exact number. The cost that doesn't appear on any spreadsheet is different. It's the number of Sunday evenings that passed with that specific heaviness. It's the version of you that could be existing right now that still doesn't exist. It's the project you kept in draft because when the day's pressure hit, you used the energy that was going toward it to buy something you didn't need. I'm not telling you this to create guilt. Guilt doesn't change financial behavior. It reinforces the pattern because guilt is also a pressure that asks for relief. I'm telling you this to create visibility because what you can see, you can choose differently. Marcus became a different version of himself, not because he stopped buying things. He became different when he stopped using consumption as an answer to a question that consumption could never answer. The question was, who am I outside the position I hold? And starting to build an answer to that question was what changed his relationship with money. He still has the job, still earns the same salary, but the salary now finances a construction, not relieves a pressure. And that shift in function is the difference between a man who's trapped and a man who's moving. If what you heard here made sense, the Free Mind Kit goes deeper. The link is in the description. And if you recognize yourself somewhere in this video, in a statement that didn't make sense, in a Sunday evening heavier than it should have been, in a purchase you knew you didn't need but made anyway, write a single word in the comments below. The word that represents what you want to stop using as a reason to stay still. It could be retirement. It could be the promotion. It could be the timing isn't right. Write the word that's keeping you anchored. Subscribe, not for money-saving tips, to learn to see what the system was trained to make you miss. Marcus from that Friday in March exists in thousands of versions. The difference between staying him and becoming something else isn't discipline, it's visibility, and visibility starts here.